Welcome to the Invest NWT session at AME Remote Roundup. You can find us under the hashtag Remote Roundup. I'm Jessica Katrachak, co-host at BTV Business Television. This session is brought to you in partnership by the Government of the Northwest Territories and Invest Canada North. NWT is known globally for its wealth of diamonds. However, it also glitters with mining potential that includes gold, zinc, silver, lead, and rare earth elements. Today, we hear from the government of NWT to set the stage on what's happening in the region and the competitive advantages. And then we'll check in with 6 leaders in exploration and mining who are active in the region in 2 sessions with a live Q&A that you can all be a part of to follow each discussion. Don't forget to connect with us on the sidebar for great conversation throughout the morning. Our first guest to kick off the session is NWT's Deputy Minister of Industry, Tourism, and Investment, and is coming to us live from NWT's capital city, Yellowknife. Welcome, Pamela. Thank you so much for joining us today. Let's start with a little bit of background on yourself and your position with the government of the Northwest Territories.
Yes, thanks, Jessica. I'm very happy to be here today. My name is Pamela Strand, and I'm currently the Deputy Minister for the GNWT for the Department of Industry, Tourism, and Investment. I am a geologist by training and have spent my entire career working in Canada's north. And I've got a long history of working across the north. I'm pretty excited to be in this role, given the important future that we have ahead of us.
Absolutely. As we prepare to hear from some of the Northwest Territories' top exploration projects coming up, what, in your view, differentiates the Northwest Territories as a jurisdiction for exploration and investment?
A couple points come to mind. I think, firstly, really speaking to the Northwest Territories' mineral wealth and mineral potential. We rank very highly. And, for example, the Slave Geological Province is an area that shows a lot of promise. I think today you're going to get a sense of a lot of that. Everybody knows about our diamonds, but you'll hear stories about our prospectivity for gold, zinc, lead, silver, cobalt. And what really excites me is about the opportunity for the Northwest Territories in what we call the critical metals, or those technology metals. They're going to be so important for our future economy. And so, the Northwest Territories has deposits of cobalt, and we know that these are all commodities that are required globally for our future. So, and I would say that we're in the infancy of the exploration for those type of metals. So definitely that's for first and foremost. And then secondly, I think when I think of the Northwest Territories, I really think about relationships and support. I think we have a proven and working model for resource development. And there is a very strong social license for mining in the Northwest Territories, including our government that is supportive. Mm-hmm. I think that the relationships that we've built out of our current co-management regime is very strong and stable. We have partnerships with Indigenous governments. We have partnerships with community governments. And I think diamond mining, which everybody thinks of the Northwest Territories, has really brought the attention, and really been the incubator for Indigenous businesses and growth. And it's because of this, I think, that our partners really recognize the benefits that mining can bring to the Northwest Territories, as well as the successes that the companies can have that explore here. So those are my 2 main pieces. But lastly, I'll just mention that our government is currently investing to support the industry, both in geoscience, our mining incentive program, and new legislation for minerals, as well as infrastructure and energy investments. So those are all super important. As we know, the North is a high-cost jurisdiction, mm-hmm. and often it puts ourselves at a competitive disadvantage compared to others. So recognizing, and attempting to level the playing field. Thank you.
Yeah. The Northwest Territories is obviously a region rich in resource potential, including minerals. We talked about touched on the economy, but how about the global green economy and some stuff that supports climate change? What is your perspective on that?
Well, definitely, I think that's top of mind for a lot of our conversations we're having with our federal and provincial counterparts. We do recognize there's a global demand for sourcing metals, these type of metals, critical metals, rare earth metals. Right. And the NWT, does have some significant deposits. I think you'll hear from Cheetah Resources with Nachalacho, which is, I call it the, it's kind of like the grocery store for rare earths. It's just a wealth of different types of minerals and commodities. We also have our Fortune Minerals' Nico project, which is cobalt, bismuth, copper, gold, and also two really world-class zinc lead deposits, Osisko metals and Norzincs. So all of which, are needed for the greening of our future technology economy.
Very good. Yes, we'll be speaking with all of those companies later this morning. So the Northwest Territories has been credited with setting a new bar for Indigenous partnerships in mining. We spoke a little bit about partnerships a little earlier. Can you explain a bit more detail and your perspective on the journey that this specifically has gone through?
Yeah, it's one that I think, Jessica, is not very well known, but we're starting to tell that story a lot more. But yeah, I think we have a proven model for resource development. And again, it touches on that relationship with our partners. We have a government-to-government relationship with our NWT Indigenous governments. And we work collectively on a co-management regulatory system where decision-making is joint. So I think that really sets the stage, and we're very proud of that. We know that Northerners have always found ways to work together, and I'll list a couple examples on, and I think it really stems to benefits staying in the North and flowing to Northerners, Northern Indigenous governments and communities. We have what we call socioeconomic agreements in the Northwest Territories. We sign them with a developer as a government, where we set targets for employment, procurement, and training, which is great. And we do know that all of our explorers and developers sign impact benefit agreements with those developers as well. And so what those really allow is for NWT residents to really participate in and benefit from the resource exploration. That has enabled and empowered many of our businesses, our communities, even our regional governments. So another item that we're very proud of is the fact that we share our royalties that come from mineral production. So we share 25% of the GNWT's royalties with those Indigenous governments that have settled land claims. So we're very proud of that. And I think that it's just proof that sharing benefits and being involved and working together can make that basis for hopefully what is a very positive future for the NWT in its mineral path.
Speaking of the future, what's in the pipeline for the rest of 2021?
Well, we're starting the year with hopefully seeing a path forward through this pandemic. So
absolutely.
As I've spoken about before, the resource industry is such an anchor to our NWT economy. They're very important, and so we're here to work with the companies to get those projects into production. And we know that, again, investing in infrastructure is going to be one of the most important ways that we as government can try and kickstart an economy. And we have some very large infrastructure projects that'll basically unlock the potential and open up a few regions. On a global scale, we will be, communicating that the NWT is a good place to invest politically, socially, and from a business perspective. We believe we're a low-risk jurisdiction, and we have resident support, government support, and Indigenous engagement in the sector that I think is definitely very leading edge. So we're hoping that'll bring positive investment across the North, including the Northwest Territories. So, and as I said, I think we're just really starting to tell the Northwest Territories story. And, you know, I hope that in the interviews that you're going to have later today, they'll be able to talk about a few of their successes and what it's like to work in our jurisdiction.
I'm looking forward to them. So thank you so much for kicking off the day with us, Pamela, and stay tuned for our first discussion of the day.
That's great. Thank you, Jessica.
Welcome to the Invest NWT Remote Roundup session, sponsored by the Government of the Northwest Territories and Invest Canada North. Today, we'll be highlighting the Northwest Territories, the second largest of the 3 territories in Northern Canada, and have 3 pivotal resource companies in the territory joining us for today's discussion: Goldterra, Nighthawk Gold, and Vital Metals / Cheetah Resources. Thank you to those of you who are joining us as part of AME BC. You can find us under the hashtag Remote Roundup virtual event this year. We invite everyone to let us know where they are tuning in from and join us in the chat feature during the session. Our panelists and their teams can connect with you throughout the fireside chat, and be sure to submit your questions for the live Q&A to follow. Welcome again to our esteemed panelists. David, please give us a brief description of Goldterra and what makes your company stand out.
Thank you very much for having us. My name is David Suda, and I am the President and CEO of Goldterra. Our company trades on the Toronto Venture Exchange under the ticker YGT. I'd like to give you guys a brief overview of our company and why we think that this is a tremendous opportunity for us to create shareholder value in the Northwest Territories with an excellent gold project. Goldterra is a district scale property. It is directly adjacent to the city of Yellowknife in the Northwest Territories. We consider this to be an excellent and low-risk mining jurisdiction, and so do many of our investors. We have a first mineral resource, which we published in 2019, late 2019. It's a 43-101 inferred mineral resource of 735,000 ounces at 1.79 grams. Our objectives for 2020 were to drill 2 of our targets to increase that resource and to update our mineral resource in 2021. We completed 2 drill campaigns in 2020, 10,000 meters of drilling at a target called Sam Otto, and then nearly 8,000 meters at our high-grade Crestaurum target. We're very excited to be going on to a new and very exciting target called the Campbell Shear. It is adjacent to the historic Con Mine, which was a very prolific producer historically, produced over 6 million ounces of high-grade gold, and the Campbell Shear was host to approximately 5 million ounces of that. So for us, having signed an option agreement with Newmont to have up to 60% of ownership of those claims is very exciting. We are now commencing a drill program, which is going to be roughly 12,000 meters. It's fully funded, and we've already drilled 2 holes, and very excited to share the results of that program through what appears to be a very strong run in the bull market of gold. So we also have other catalysts. We do have the results of the remainder of the Crestaurum high-grade program. We have roughly 10 holes pending, and those should roll fairly soon. I'd like to also just walk the investors through our management team so that they have a sense of why we think we can be very successful in finding gold here in this prolific district. We most recently had the addition of several board members and the chairman of the board, Gerald Paneton. Gerald has been in the industry for over 30 years. He was the founder of Detour Gold, and he has been spearheading the vision for our technical program since he joined the company. He brings tremendous passion and experience. He's put 3 mines into production. I myself came from the capital markets, and I saw Goldterra as an opportunity of lifetime, and that's why I left my position in the institutional equity capital markets to join the company, where I joined Joe Campbell, who was the founder of the company and continues to be the COO. We've got a new CFO, and we also have a very strong board of members that we believe will bolster our ability to make something of success for our shareholders. And I also would like to draw attention to the fact that the Northwest Territories has been a tremendous place for us to work. We've got excellent relationships with the community in Yellowknife, both with the local community, the Indigenous peoples. Joe Campbell and his team from the company, as it was previously called, Terrax, have done an excellent job of making us very happy guests. We will always view ourselves as guests in the territories. Over time, we've had all of our drill permits issued in record time. There have been several mines permitted in the Northwest Territories in the last 5 years, and we have very strong community and support for mining. So in summary, Goldterra is a tremendous opportunity for people to leverage this gold price run that we've seen, and we look forward to bringing out the results of our campaign to drill what we view as our flagship target at the Campbell Shear, just adjacent to the city of Yellowknife. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, David. Okay, let's move on to you. You are new to the role of CEO at Nighthawk Gold. Congratulations on that, but certainly not new to operating in the region. Can you give us a bit of background on Nighthawk and tell us a little bit more about their project?
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. My name is Kevon Salehi. I'm the newly appointed President CEO of Nighthawk Gold. Nighthawk trades under the ticker symbol NHK on the Toronto Stock Exchange. We are a Canadian-based junior gold exploration company, and we own a fairly large land position in what is referred to as the Indian Lake Gold Camp, which sits about 200 kilometers north of Yellowknife, which, as David mentioned, has been a major mining hub to a lot of mining activities over the last several decades, especially when you look at the diamond industry. Our core asset is the Colmac Gold Project, which was a historical site for mine production in the early 90s. When Royal Oak owned it, and close to 500,000 ounces of gold was produced from that mine before the company went bankrupt. To date, with all the work that Nighthawk has done, we've basically added about 2 million ounces of resources in all categories, which sits at our core asset, which is the Colmac Gold Project. Now, to put it in perspective, over the last several years, with all the work that Nighthawk has done, close to 200,000 meters of drilling have been done on site, which I think is a fairly remarkable achievement when you look at the limited amount of capital drilling that has been done on the property. So we've had a very good success rate, and our conversion of drill holes to actual resources in the ground has been very successful. Going forward, we have a very aggressive and accelerated exploration program planned for the next 12 to 24 months. We've just extended our permits at site, which allow us to go from 3 drills to 7 drills. So over the next 12 to 24 months, we are looking at doubling the total amount of meters that we've drilled on site year to date, or project to date, I should say. And that's all in an attempt to increase our current resource of 2 million ounces at Colmac substantially, and move the projects towards what I think is a natural next step towards a PEA stage. So yeah, 2021, I think, is going to be a very transformational year for the company. We also have a new management team in place, of course, with myself being appointed in early December. And we've just added Richard Roy as our newly appointed Vice President of Exploration, who brings a lot of experience from the junior to even mid-sized gold mining space. And yeah, we're looking forward to a very busy and exciting 2021.
Great, thanks so much. Okay, on to you, Jeff. You're joining us all the way from Australia today. Please tell us a little bit more about Vital Metals and Cheetah Resources and what stage of development you're at.
Thanks, Jessica, and thanks for having me on. My name is Jeff Atkins. I'm the Managing Director of Cheetah Resources and also Cheetah's parent company, Vital Metals. Vital Metals is listed on the Australian Stock Exchange under ticker VML. Cheetah owns the Netchalacho, or the surface assets of the Netchalacho Rare Earth Project, which is located about 100 kilometres east of Yellowknife. We purchased the asset from Avalon in 2019. And over the last 12 to 18 months, we've managed to progress that project to the state where our target is to enter production in 2021. For those who don't know, rare earths are a specialty mineral, and they're used primarily in electric vehicles, wind turbines, miniaturization, things like that. So anything which revolves around energy efficiency and renewable energy requires rare earths. So they're a very topical mineral at the moment. The status of the project is that, as I mentioned, our target is to enter production in 2021, and that is the first project which will have entered production for about 5 years in the world in rare earths. And this really is a remarkable achievement to consider that we've only held the asset for 18 months, and we're already in that position of going through the regulatory process, the studies, engagement with local communities, but to be in a position to be targeting mobilising a mine fleet within the next 3 months is really quite an achievement. And I think it says a lot about the environment of working in the Northwest Territories, of the fact that we've been able to do that. Typically for these types of projects, you would expect that process to take about 5 years, and we've managed it within 18 months. In terms of Cheetah, our expertise is rare earths. Our entire management team has come out of the rare earths industry over the last 10 to 15 years. And we established the company based on the lessons that we've learned in operating these projects in the past. Myself, I worked at Lynas Corporation, which was it started a large rare earth mine in 2007. And our senior management team have also come out of Lynas as well. So we're really applying all the lessons that we've learned over the last 10 to 15 years into Cheetah Resources to make it a success.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Okay, let's move on to the fireside chat portion. I'm going to ask a number of questions here and kind of go around the round table, but feel free to jump in at any time as well. Let's start with a look back at 2020. How did the year shape up or shake out for you, for your company, and for the region in general, in your perspective? Let's start with you, David.
Thanks, Jessica. I think it's a great question, and one that I'll take the opportunity to answer from the perspective of Goldterra. We've long touted the value of being close to a city, especially a city like Yellowknife, and we didn't realize doing that for a couple of years how that would play out in a situation like we have with COVID-19. And so, despite the fact that it's been a very challenging year, in some ways, we've realized that, again, this ability to be in the Northwest Territories and in the city of Yellowknife has been a tremendous blessing, and we've been able to operate. We actually, when lockdown started at the beginning of the pandemic, recognized that due to the situation that we were in and the jurisdiction and us being so close to town, we didn't have large camps. We didn't have to house people together or feed them in sort of larger situations. We were able to send everybody home at night and comply with the regulations and keep everybody safe. So to us, we haven't been impacted terribly. We're obviously impacted by what we see around us and all of the suffering that has happened. But for us, we've been able to operate. We've been able to conduct 2 extensive exploration programs and continue to do so while keeping people safe in the community. So we're very fortunate and thankful for that. But largely we haven't been impacted by anything other than the rise in the gold price, which is positive.
No, absolutely. Great. And so happy to hear, that you were able to work so well with all the restrictions, that were brought to us from COVID as well. Okay, so Kayvan, I know that you just joined the company at the end of 2020, but in your perspective, give us a bit of background about how the company got through the year, and what are maybe some of the reasons why you wanted to join.
Sure. Well, look, as David said, 2020 has been a very challenging year for everybody, and Nighthawk was not an exception to that either. The way we operate is we open our exploration camps towards the end of February, so we don't drill all year round. And of course, last year, the opening of the camp coincided with the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. So as a result of that, and just to ensure health and safety of our employees and all our contractors, we closed the camp down and we halted all operations. And of course, as this numbers started coming down and restrictions were lifted, we managed to get the camp, the company managed to get the camp slowly opened up. But that certainly affected our drilling results and in terms of total meters drilled. So if you look at last year's results, we drilled just over 22,000 meters in the ground. And that's roughly half of what the company had done in any given year prior to COVID-19. So yeah, it did impact our exploration operations. Having said that, it gave us a chance to make sure that we had all the health and safety protocols in place. So we are well prepared and ready to open the camp up again at the end of February. And of course, we're monitoring the situation very closely. And it all depends on how the situation with the pandemic progresses on over the next couple of months. We'll act accordingly.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, let's move over to Jeff now, and I want to mention maybe our fourth panelist today, Shirley, the cat who's been walking through your screen. Give her a shout out. Yes. So how did the year shape up or shake out for you and your company for 2020?
Well, obviously, as you can see, one of the biggest impacts is my cat has decided that she's now a video star, so she's on video calls. Look, 2020 has certainly been a challenging year from our perspective. And I think that it's always difficult to start a project which is located in a different country to where you are. And one of the biggest challenges that we've had is obviously the shutdown of international borders. So from our perspective, the impact has really been twofold. Obviously, we've had the issues which we've needed to account for on the ground. And similarly to Kayvan, we made the decision at the very beginning of the pandemic to shut down our site and our camp for a period of I think 3 to 4 months. We felt that was the best decision to make from an occupational health and safety perspective, and not just from our project, but also recognising that from a community health perspective, we felt that was the correct decision to make, as that things were much more important than just what was happening on our project. So we made that decision to shut down the site. We reopened it in the summer to do site works, but that period enabled us to get all of our occupational health and safety procedures rewritten to account for the new reality. So that was very important from our perspective. From a larger company side of things, we have had to change how we would ordinarily operate. Instead of myself and our senior management team spending significant amounts of time in Yellowknife to help bring the project forward, we've had to try to do that remotely, which has obviously brought about a few other issues which you have to adapt to. However, in terms of impact to the company, as I mentioned at the start, despite the challenges of 2020, we're still on track to be commencing operations in 2021. So whilst it has been challenging, I think we've adapted fairly well to that. Could we have done it a bit better? Probably, but I think we've adapted very well to still be on track to enter production this year.
Great news, Jeff. Thanks for that. Okay, you've all chosen to explore and advance projects in the region. Why is NWT an attractive area for mining and exploration in your perspective? David, we'll start with you again.
I think in all of our cases, I don't want to speak for the other guys, but I know a little bit about their projects. First and foremost, there are still relatively unexplored or underexplored assets in the Northwest Territories that are, have tremendous potential. And so it starts with those. And then, it starts with communities that are welcoming, communities that are, willing to support our efforts to, bring value, to bring business. And so, these things are never without their challenges. It's never a straight line to success. But I think that, the Northwest Territories is host to wonderful resources and relatively untapped, and I think that with the help of federal governments, we can, see a path towards success and prosperity for all three of our companies and the other companies that are operating there, as well as for the people that are local to the communities.
Great, good answer. And Keevan, in your perspective on this?
Sure. Listen, I think there is huge potential for mineral exploration and mining industry in general in the NWT. And, we talked about it earlier, having spent the last 2-3 years prior to Nighthawk working for a company that built and operates an asset through a joint venture partnership with De Beers, of course, in the NWT. I think the potential for mineral exploration is huge. Especially again, as David mentioned, there is so much untapped and virgin ground to still be explored. And especially when you combine that with scarcity of, new discoveries, whether it's gold, copper, or any other commodities around the globe. So I think NWT is well positioned for a lot more economic activity. And again, I think David touched on it. It's just, to me, it's going to be a healthy balance and a function of investment, both from the private sector and also the public sector in the form of, infrastructure, but be it road or extension of power grids or whatever. So yeah, I think there's huge potential for exploration and mine development in NWT. I think, I touched on it briefly in my opening remarks, but the territory has been a host to a lot of economic activity in our industry over the past several decades. Just look at the diamond industry and all the exploration and mine development that has taken place in the region. And yeah, if I can just speak about Nighthawk specifically, I mean, our land position and this district scale size of the property and all the, highly prospective targets that we've identified on our grounds with very limited capital expenditures to date, I think demonstrates that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jeff, what is your perspective on, why the Northwest Territories is an area for mining and exploration?
Look, I think fundamentally with mining projects, as David and Keevan have said, first and foremost, to be a successful mining jurisdiction, you need to have quality assets, and that is going to be the make or break of any district, and that's certainly something where the Northwest Territories has some incredible projects. From our perspective, the Netchel Archo project and what we are looking at developing, I would say that's the best project I've seen, and our entire team has worked on other rare earth projects, and all of us just can't believe the quality of the asset there in the first instance. So that's obviously the first point. The second point is that there is a real desire to build the mining industry, and that means that not only have you got the assets, but within the government, within the communities, there's a real desire to build the industry. Mm-hmm. So you're left in a situation where not only have you got a good project, but you're welcomed into the region. And as David said, we are visitors to the region. We are and particularly from our perspective, being an Australian company, we've been welcomed with open arms. And that's not only with the government, but particularly with the local communities and how much they have welcomed us and been happy to work with us to find a way to develop the project. And as I mentioned at the start, to have a process of 18 months, less than 18 months from completing the acquisition to being in a position where we're starting to, at the moment we're building an ice road, which will then to enable the mobilisation of the mining fleet. You couldn't do that in a lot of jurisdictions. So, that says a lot to the benefits of the Northwest Territories.
Awesome. Let's move on and speak a bit about infrastructure. I know it's a big topic in the Northwest Territories. What are some positive practices that you see that are in place to help with infrastructure? But then I also want to know, what are some of the challenges that you each face in regards to infrastructure as well? So David, let's start with you.
Okay. I'm going to start by painting with the broader strokes, and maybe my esteemed colleagues can sort of drill down on some more details. Look, Canada has a history of being a country that is built on infrastructure. This is a country that is vast with tremendous resources, not a very dense population historically. And so infrastructure is the backbone of establishing, industry and commerce and communities. And if I look at the Northwest Territories and the city of Yellowknife, which now is a city that if I got into an Uber in Vancouver, I could take it all the way to almost to our drill site.
Oh.
But that's a thing that takes time to establish, to develop roads and power and all that goes with ultimately building a mine, as Kayvon mentioned. The diamond mines that have been built in the Northwest Territories, they weren't built overnight, and the infrastructure that exists to have built those needs to continue to improve. So there are initiatives and efforts by right at the community level all the way through the territory and up to the federal government to continue to expand that infrastructure. Power is something that is certainly challenging for I think both the community. I don't want to speak for people who live in Yellowknife because I don't live there, but those of our partners in Yellowknife are challenged with that, and certainly for the future, for our country to continue to develop. I think these are big ticket items. They're expensive, so it doesn't happen overnight, and it requires the political will of not just the local communities, but also the support of our nation broadly. And we're seeing that support come to the table, and we're very happy for that. So.
Very good. Kayvon, can you speak to that a little bit? Some of the positive practices that you see in place here, and maybe some of the biggest challenges that you still see out there?
I think David covers it really well. The only thing I would add, and I just want to support it, specific to Nighthawk as an example. I mean, if you look at our properties, we're located about 200 kilometers north of Yellowknife, right? Which is has been a major mining hub for the past several decades. Now, if you look at infrastructure, and the key two ingredients to developing a mine down the road, excuse me, is generally all year round road access and power. Even though our site's about 200 kilometers away from Yellowknife, there is currently a all year road under construction, which I believe is going to be completed either this year or early next year. That gets it provides access to the local communities in the area, but it kind of gets us halfway to our properties. And of course, in terms of power as well, there's a power line that's roughly about 100 kilometers to the south of our properties. So to David's point, even though we're not there yet, as a CEO of Nighthawk and a junior exploration company that's looking to ultimately down the road build a project, I couldn't be more excited about the possibility of having some of that infrastructure further extended. Now, again, David mentioned it, it's not going to happen overnight, and that has to be supported by further success and capital from companies like Nighthawk and exploration and additional resources to actually show economic viability for our projects going forward.
Right. Jeff, do you have anything to add on this?
I do, and I guess for me it's been a bit of a learning curve coming from Australia, going into the Northwest Territories. Our project is a little over 100 kilometres away from Yellowknife. There are no roads. There is no power going to the site. And if I was anywhere else in the world, the Netchalacho project would be very difficult to develop. The reason why we are able to develop it is primarily because we're located in the Northwest Territories, and we're located on the Great Slave Lake, which is fundamentally a great highway. It means that in winter we have the opportunities of ice roads, and in summer we have barge access. Now, what that means from a mining project is that when you look at mining projects, they're half to do with the actual deposit itself, and they're half to do with infrastructure. And the success of a project is largely driven by how the percentage of capital which you have to spend actually on the mining project compared to associated infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Now, because we're located on the Great Slave Lake, it means that for us, that percentage of spend on the processing and the mining is extremely high. We have very minimal costs to actually build enabling infrastructure. In winter, it is a very simple case of putting an ice road on the Great Slave Lake. We did that last year. We're doing that again this year. And in summer, it's barge access with direct landing at the site. So that really is a unique benefit. And as I say, if it wasn't for the fact that we were located in the Northwest Territories, being located 100 kilometres from the nearest town without any infrastructure going out to the site, it wouldn't be possible. Certainly not in the way that we're looking at developing the project.
Very good. We touched a little bit on it already, but I just want, like a brief perspective on the geographical potential that, you all see from your different perspectives. As I stated at the beginning of the talk here, Northwest Territories is the second largest of the 3 territories, and it's vastly unexplored. So if we can speak a little bit more on the geological potential, David.
Okay, thank you. That's a great setup. We think that the geological potential of the district is absolutely world-class. There are really only a handful, I think, of prospective large-scale areas for gold discovery. And again, as my colleagues mentioned earlier, there hasn't been any real discovery in the gold sector in quite some time. So for us to find ourselves sitting on the doorstep of historic, highly prolific gold mining in what we view as a very untapped and underexplored, you even call it unexplored, region is a tremendous opportunity. I mean, these are truly world-class projects that you see presented before you here today. So, I think that's just the best place to leave it. It's all about potential, and it's all about access to that potential. And I think we have, the right mix.
Awesome. Keyvan, what is your perspective on this?
Sure. I'll be specific to Nighthawk and our land position. I mean, I touched on it briefly earlier, but again, we also, as David said, we're sitting on a land position that's very highly prospective, with very little work that's been done over the past several years. We've identified 2 million ounces of resources in our core asset, which is the Cormac Gold Project. In addition to that, we've identified numerous highly potential and highly prospective targets that that sits on our properties. We call them satellite deposits, and I think that really sets the company up going forward as a potentially multi-million ounce resource developer. We truly believe that we have the land position that's capable of delivering such a resource. There are a lot of similarities in terms of geology and structure and style of mineralization to another gold camp, the Timmins gold camp, which I again touched on briefly earlier, which has produced in the excess of 50 million ounces over the past several decades, right? So, I agree with David. There's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of ground that still has to be tested. And I couldn't be more excited about our prospects going forward.
That's great. Jeff, what's your perspective on this geological potential here?
Well, I guess from my perspective, the fact that we're looking at a different sort of project to what Keyvan and David are. So we're dealing in critical minerals rather than gold and diamond, which is, I guess, the more traditional mining project in the Northwest Territories. So from our perspective, we're looking at what is the next big thing in terms of minerals. And from that perspective, if you look at what's happening in the world around energy efficiency, renewable energies, and also some geopolitical issues going on at the moment where you have governments talking with each other about critical mineral strategies. And particularly with, there's a huge push for establishing infrastructure supply chains and supply chains for these critical minerals in North America. That means that there's a lot of competition of who's going to really take advantage of that. And that's where I think Northwest Territories has a huge potential, because there aren't many jurisdictions which have quality rare earth projects or other critical minerals like lithium, niobium, those types of minerals. And there's a lot of prospective sites around the Northwest Territories in those critical minerals. And that really, I think, provides a huge opportunity for the Northwest Territories, not only from a mining industry perspective, but actually its importance to overall critical mineral strategies for Canada and North America.
Mm-hmm. So that's a great perspective. I want to remind everyone that's watching, if you have any questions, to please send them in while they're fresh in your mind, and they'll get queued up for our live question and answer that we'll be doing after we're done the fireside chat. Okay, let's move on to ESG. Obviously, it was one of the hottest topics in 2020. How does the Northwest Territory exploration and mining and any processes within your company address investors' growing concerns on seeing metrics in this area? So let's start with you, David.
Thanks, Jessica. I think it's high time that these issues have really sort of come to the fore. Certainly in the investing world, these are now hot topics, and I think I can only speak for Goldterra when I say that for a junior exploration company, a tremendous amount of effort has gone into effort and money spent has gone into making sure, as I said earlier on, that we behave as guests. Engagement is something that I was absolutely blown away by when I was joining the project. I couldn't have imagined joining a team with limited bandwidth and limited financial resources that could have done a better job than was done by Joe Campbell and his team when they were putting this land package together. You know, the underlying sort of theme here is that our property, our assets, our exploration, you know, they all occur on the traditional lands of the Yellowknife Dene First Nation. You know, and also, you know, the project borders the city of Yellowknife and shares multiple land uses, you know, hydro, road, airport, communications, recreational trails. So we're in a very sort of unique position as a junior company to have, you know, quite a complex and diverse engagement program. I think that, you know, while we're small, we try to think big, and our values and goals and communications absolutely have to be aligned with the community. So we're kind of glad almost in a way that investors, you know, institutional funds are all sort of asking all of our peers to rise up to the level, because it's just important for the whole industry to look good.
Great. Kevan, what are your thoughts on ESG from Nighthawk's perspective and working in the Northwest Territories in general?
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. Well, certainly for me personally, I'm really glad to see that ESG is actually finally center stage when it comes as an investment theme. I think to add to what David said, I think just being a Canadian miner and the jurisdiction that we operate in, we are privileged to be working with what I would consider very high standards if you compare us globally to other countries. And I think the same thing can be said about Australia. So in that regard, we're very fortunate. Now, that doesn't suggest that we have to stop there. And I think it's important to go above and beyond. In my past experience and all the companies that I've been involved with, the company has done a great job to go above and beyond what is the regulatory requirement. For Nighthawk specifically, we have great relationships and great engagement with all our local communities. We've just actually, as the company is starting to grow and advance our projects even further with more activity on our grounds, we've just appointed someone who's going to be basically our liaison between and she's going to be handling all our relationships in the local community. So we are actually accelerating our engagement within the local communities.
That's excellent to hear. Jeff, what is your perspective on this?
Well, from our perspective, there's being a developer of rare earth projects, we have one other aspect which we need to consider with regards to ESG. Obviously, I agree with David and Kevan with regards to our commitments to the local communities. I'll add to that as well. We're operating in an area which is pristine. So in terms of impact to the environment, we really need to ensure that our impact is minimised to the greatest extent possible. The other consideration from our perspective is, as I mentioned earlier, rare earths are used in renewable energy and energy efficiency and green technologies. So that adds an additional requirement where, to produce those products, and when you talk about electric vehicles, you read quite a lot in the press around, well, okay, electric vehicles might be a more green option. But the question is always, well, what about the extraction of the minerals? And so therefore there is a real push, and from our customers, there is a very real push on ESG principles and how you can minimize environmental impact in terms of the production of these minerals. Mm-hmm. From our perspective, the approach which we're taking is, and this is one of the real benefits from a geological side of things as well, is on our mine site, we don't have any process chemicals. We don't have any process water with our demonstration plant. So we are going to be the first rare earth project which will primarily just use ore sorting to produce a concentrate product at our startup operation. Our plant is not located, doesn't have concrete foundations. So it's simply sitting on a compacted earth. So from an impact perspective, environmental impact perspective, we've really looked at how we can minimise those impacts. And I think that's a very important consideration then when you're looking for the support of local communities as well, because you have to demonstrate these are the lands of the local communities. So actually addressing that and seeing how you can minimise that in all aspects of your operation is incredibly important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we've touched on it a little bit, and we've talked about community involvement, but Indigenous leadership and engagement is, clearly a crucial part of any successful exploration in Canada. Can you speak on your experiences in the Northwest Territories to that regards, David?
Broadly, our experiences have been excellent. As I said, we've been largely welcomed. We want to make sure that we always try to do better. We certainly would never say that we're perfect, but it's always a topic internally. Looking into our company, we continually consider ourselves to be very fortunate to be where we are, because our engagement with the local Indigenous communities, with which we, partner on a variety of levels, initiatives, have been, always engaged with us. That's the first thing. I mean, you can't have a conversation if the other party doesn't want to talk. Right. And so I would say that, you're not always going to agree on everything you talk about. That would be boring. We are just very thankful for the fact that the local communities surrounding Yellowknife and our project have always been open to a conversation. And for that, we're thankful, and we'll always try to be as respectful as we can in that conversation and open-minded.
And from an employment perspective?
From an employment perspective, we've done a decent job of trying to make sure that, we're providing opportunities. We are currently in the midst of, building a team that's proprietary to us, from people who are local to the community. We've made 2 local hires, and of course, we would extend those opportunities, equally to anyone within the community. So, of course, we look forward to advancing on that sort of tangent, if you will.
Excellent. Keevan, what is Nighthawk's stance on this?
So look, for me, in terms of general comment on, our commitment and engagement with local communities, I think every community in Canada has unique characteristics. And for all companies and developers that want to operate within the industry, it's really important to identify, acknowledge, and respect those unique characteristics and the needs that come along with that, right? So how do you do that? It's by effective early engagement with the local communities. And essentially making sure that the dialogue is continuous to ensure long-lasting relationships. And for us, Nighthawk, that's certainly going to be our approach. We already have great relationships with all the local communities. And as I said before, we've appointed someone who's going to be basically in charge of this, and we're accelerating that program even faster as we grow our projects and, increase our visibility and activity in the region.
That's great to hear. Jeff, what are your thoughts on some of the Indigenous leadership and engagement within the Northwest Territories?
Look, I think the simplest way to answer that is, as I mentioned before, in 18 months, we've gone from finalising the purchase of an asset through regulatory approvals, land use permits, water licenses, having those in place, and being in a position to mobilise our fleet. There is no chance of being able to achieve that without the support and of the Indigenous communities. They were and they have been instrumental in us being able to achieve that. And for that, I have to thank them. The way that all the communities have operated and communicated with us has just been first class. As David said, we're not going to do everything right. And I think when we talk about one of the impacts of COVID, for myself and my senior management team to not be able to travel to Yellowknife, that's one area which is really, I think, has been a challenge for us, and we've had to learn a new way of how we can communicate and how we can engage at that senior management level. But yeah, I think the approach which has been taken by the communities has just been first class. And as David mentioned earlier as well, you can't have a conversation if the other party doesn't want to talk.
Right.
And it's been a really good experience for us. It's my first time working up in Canada, and I can only speak positively of the experience.
Oh, that's awesome. This actually leads on to our next question, which is partnerships. So the Invest in Canada's North initiative that launched last year has been a big highlighter to the North. Can you speak about the value in that, and maybe touch on some other partnerships and experiences working in the Northwest Territories, David?
Well, we have had a great experience, Jessica, as you alluded. We've been involved with this initiative in the past year, and for us, creating partnerships is everything. There's no way that a junior gold exploration company in our position can move a project forward without continually making new partnerships. So we value this initiative. We've seen very positive results. We've received largely positive feedback, and we look forward to building further partnerships through this initiative.
Absolutely. Well, it brought us together today. So, Kevan, can you speak on this a little bit? I know, like I said, you're a bit new to Nighthawk, but sure. The Invest in Canada's North initiative was launched last year and has, been a tremendous highlight to the North. Is there any other experiences that you can even pull on with partnerships in the North?
Look, just to add to what David was saying, I think this platform itself, or any other partnership that essentially increases visibility and brings more exposure to the natural resources industry in the North, is going to be a positive move towards more activity in the industry in the region. So that's all I would say about it. I can't really speak specifically about previous partnerships, but yeah, anything that can increase exposure is a good step forward.
Mm-hmm. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Oh, look, I don't really have too much more to add than what Kevan and David mentioned. The only other thing which I would add is, in terms of the partnerships, and this is an extension to the previous conversation around how we found from working with the local communities. At last year's conference, we signed an MOU with Nahanni Daton Show for our mining contract.
Very good.
So, over the last 12 months, we've worked very closely with them to finalise that contract. Mm-hmm. And to think that that's been a 12-month process, and yet it's been the way that we've been able to work together with Nahanni and Daton Show has been. It makes the project and bringing the project into operations far easier, mm-hmm. and actually, to be honest, a far more pleasant experience as well. So, that's been fantastic, and we're looking forward to actually having an Indigenous mining contractor operating on their own land.
Oh, that's excellent. Okay, we're moving on now to our final question of the chat, fireside chat, but then we'll be going into our live question and answer after. We're right at the start of 2021. What is some of your perspectives on a commodities outlook for the remainder of the year? We have gold and rare earth elements to touch on. So, David, let's start with you from your perspective on the outlook here.
Well, as I said earlier, I think we're entering a massive bull run in gold, and the challenge with predicting commodity prices is typically timing, and that will always remain the challenge. So I'm not an economist. I'm not David Rosenberg. I'm David Suda, and just a lowly equity capital markets guy who sat on a desk and traded stocks for a long enough time to think that given the economic backdrop and what's been happening in the world, we certainly are entering a higher gold price environment. Is it going to go straight up? I don't think so. I'm not going to predict price, but I think that for a project like ours and a project like Kayvon's, even at these prices, we're entering some very heady times, and we're very thankful for that. Hopefully, this is just the start of a long cycle to the upside.
Excellent. Kayvon?
Sure. I believe that we are in early innings. In the early innings of what could be even a bigger run for the price of gold going forward the next couple of years, especially when you look at all the government spending in the form of stimulus, not just in the U.S., but all governments. And that's, and I think we're not out of the woods on that yet, especially when you see the COVID numbers where they are today. And before we're done, I think you're going to see a lot more government spending. And that's really the primary reason why I think gold's going to continue to perform well. Look at the rising debt levels in the U.S. And if you take the U.S. debt, I think by the time the U.S. government is done printing money, it's going to be well in excess of 30 trillion. And when you compare that to their GDP of 20 trillion, that ratio has essentially doubled over the past 10 years. And I think and there's a historical precedence for it. If you go back to the last major crisis we had back in 08, 09, gold, along with all other equities, initially sold off aggressively as people were panic selling and fleeing into cash. But over the next 3 years, it nearly tripled from around 700, if I'm not mistaken. So I think today, what we're seeing with COVID-19 pandemic and the crisis of last year, I think you're seeing the same thing. And I think that trend it could repeat itself. And that's why I'm personally optimistic about the price of gold. I'll leave it there.
Okay, it's a good place to leave it. Okay, so Jeff, what's your perspective from a rare earth standpoint?
Well, rare earths and other critical minerals are really heading into an interesting time, I think, and not just from a consumer perspective, but I think the recent US election will also have a very, very big impact on rare earths and other critical minerals. And I touched on it before in terms of the reasons why. When you look at the key trends in the world today, we're moving into an area where we're going down the path of electrification of vehicles, and that's a massive, massive change. We're moving into an era of increased renewables, and particularly around wind turbines and solar. We're also moving into an era of miniaturization and robotization. Artificial intelligence. And those are the big three changes in the world. And the World Economic Forum classifies that as the fourth industrial revolution. And in every single one of those areas, rare earths are critical. So to achieve that, and with all of these trends, rare earths are absolutely critical. The final thing then is you add into it the geopolitical situation. And you have a situation where currently you have these critical minerals controlled fundamentally by one country, with China producing the vast majority of the world's rare earths, and not just from a raw material supply, but particularly down the supply chain through the production of magnets and metals. So you add changes in demand, you add into it geopolitical issues, and you basically have a perfect storm for rare earths and critical minerals. And you also have a situation where the projects themselves are very difficult to develop, typically. So it's very difficult for companies to react quickly to these changes in demand. So all of those things added in together means that we're in for a pretty wild ride, I think, in terms of rare earths and the and other critical minerals. Now, how that will play out, nobody can really predict that, as the rare earth market typically hasn't been the most transparent in the world when you look at how it's behaved over the last 10 to 15 years. But fundamentally, we are heading into an area where the supply and demand dynamic is really moving to a supply deficit. And that provides a huge opportunity. And from our perspective and the approach which we're taking to be the next producer of rare earths in the world, and developing a strategy which enables us to react quickly to market changes, certainly makes us very excited about what the future holds.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that, Jeff. I think this is a great point to end the fireside chat with our panelists as we kick off the Invest Northwest Territories Session 1. Again, you can find us at #RemoteRoundup. We're going to do a quick thank you to our sponsors, and then we're going to jump straight in to the live question and answer period with our attendees. So don't go anywhere. We have a lot of questions lined up already, so let's just jump right into it. We have about 20 minutes here. Our first question is for everybody. Given the scarcity of skilled trades in the Northwest Territory and the multiple projects that we've been talking about here today, where is everybody sourcing their workers from? So that's a great question to kick off here from Michael. So let's start with David.
Okay, thanks. That's a good question. And it gives us an opportunity to, again, sort of fly the gold Terra flag. We're so happy to be next to a city, and the city and the local community is a source of skilled trade. There's definitely a rich history in mining in the Northwest Territories that has extended to the current operation of mines, and Yellowknife is the hub for those mines. So as I said earlier, we've also made it a deliberate move to hire a team, a proprietary team to us from the local community. Obviously, there are some or certain limitations to who's available and when they're available from within the community, and so in those situations we do bring people from the outside, and also some of the contractors that we use. We also can't necessarily control who they're using, but again, the local community for us is a significant source of skilled labor and trade.
Excellent. Kayvon, what is your perspective on this?
The same goes for us. Although we're considered a remote operation, we're pretty close to Yellowknife, so we're a short haul flight away from Yellowknife, which is a major hub. And there's actually on the other side, in terms of the question, I think there are a lot of technical expertise and resources as Yellowknife is a major mine. With that said, we are an exploration company, so we use a major contractor to do a lot of the work for us on site. And although we have people coming in from all over the country, we also look at hiring local communities to our contractors. So essentially, David covered it really well, and I agree with most of the stuff that he said.
Great, thank you. Sorry, you just cut out a little bit there at the end. Jeff, where are you mostly sourcing your skilled workers from?
So our situation is a little bit different to David and Kivan's in that our workforce that we're looking for at the moment is actually an operational workforce rather than an exploration one. However, similarly, our focus is on maximising the level of local employment. And at this stage, we are, wherever possible, we will employ locally. There may be some specialist positions which do require us to bring people in from outside of the Northwest Territories, but our focus is on maximising the levels of local employment.
That's excellent. I actually have another question just directed right to you, Jeff. This is from Bud, and he asks, "How are you set up for infrastructure?" I know we did talk a little bit about it, but he wants a bit more specifics on roads, power, camp, milling, and crushing, etc.
Okay, so from a road perspective, we're currently in the process of building an ice road out over to the site, and that will be used to mobilise our mining fleet, ore sorter, etc. And that will occur over the next few months. From a power perspective, we actually have a very low power demand. We do not have grinding circuits or things like that, which really tend to draw major amounts of power. So we're able to generate power just through on-site generators, and it's only a very small amount. From the camp, we're fortunate that we do have an existing camp at the site, which was previously constructed by Avalon, and we are upgrading that as we speak as well. So from an infrastructure perspective, we really don't need a lot. As I say, it's a single generator which comes in a container. It's an ice road. We're not going to be building new roads out to the site.
Excellent. This next question is for all the panelists, and it's from...
What sources of energy are you using in your operations? Are there opportunities or possibly plans to introduce renewable energy sources?
I can start and just continue with the order that we've been going. For us, we are an exploration company, so we don't have a large draw on energy yet. We hope to need a lot of energy soon, but for now, again, being in town, our partners, our staff, live in the community. Our core shack is in the community, so we're on local power. And then when we're in the field, we're using the traditional forms of power to power drills and any of our other tools. We are always looking towards more sustainable and renewable energies. Currently, what's available to us as an exploration company is pretty limited. So we look to the technology providers to lead the way, and certainly when possible, we'll be making moves to minimize our carbon footprint.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to you, Kivan.
Sure, yeah. Same goes for us. We are an exploration company. We are a remote operation as well. So right now, based on the technology that's available to us, our only option really is using generators on site. With that said, as we start thinking about advancing our projects and getting to a PEA and eventually building a mine down the road with additional resources, certainly sustainable energy and how we look at the way we would power a potential mining site down the road is something that's on our mind. And for sure, we'll be looking at the economics of that as well. And hopefully technology, whether it's solar, wind, whatever it's going to be, which is an alternative to the traditional ways of energy or providing power to any mine site, will be there with us as well as we advance our projects forward.
Excellent. Jeff, let's move on to you for this.
Yes, so we actually did quite an in-depth study on the viability of using solar with batteries for our startup operation. In this instance, we weren't for our startup operation, we weren't able to use that, and instead of just going with a traditional generator. However, the technology itself is something which we are very interested in, and seeing how we are going to be able to use it and maximize the use of renewables in the future. As mentioned before, rare earths are a product which is used in renewable energy, and therefore there is a real desire from us to maximize the use of renewables as we move forward, particularly when we start getting into larger and more into larger operations.
Great. This question is from Tony. She says, he says, good morning, everyone. With the metal commodity markets increasing, how can a recycler of the recycling industry help with producing revenue to subsidize your business? That's an interesting question. So we'll start with you, David.
Sorry, you broke up, Jessica.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, it's
Could you just repeat the question?
A live event. Yeah. Okay, so this question is, how can a recycler or the recycling industry help with producing revenue to subsidize your business?
That's a good question, and not one that I can really answer intelligently. Not something that we've spent obviously enough time thinking about. But given the stage of our operations, offhand, I can't think of how a recycler would be able to help us locally. But certainly, if somebody has an idea, our door is open, and we're always happy to listen to any ideas that we could get on that front.
Thank you. Kayvon?
Yeah, that's a good
question. On this?
Yeah, it's got me thinking. I can't really answer that well either. To David's point, if somebody has an idea as to how we can actually, whether it's generating revenue or finding ways of saving costs for our operations, I'd certainly be happy to hear about it. But I can't really comment on it. I mean, but it is an interesting question. Definitely got me thinking.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, as with David and Kayvon, it's not something which I've really come across in the past, in the ability for recyclers to add revenue to the business. With rare earths itself, recycling is a hot topic, and how rare earth products can be recycled from existing products. But from an operational perspective, yeah, I'd have to really, if anybody has any ideas of how that might work, we'd certainly be open to listening.
Excellent. We have about 5 minutes left for the question and answer. I'm going to go on to a question from Hart. Are there opportunities for Indigenous-owned service companies from outside of the Northwest Territories to provide support in the areas of community engagement and environmental services? If so, who can we connect with to discuss this? It's a bit of a loaded question, but let's start with you, David.
It's a good question, and I think it's one worth asking, because we want to be able to state that we want to offer opportunity equally to anybody who wants to contribute to our project and partner with us. And so I am the right person to connect with, or by any of via any of the contact information that's available on our website. Our door is always open, and we often hear from service providers from the local community, both Indigenous. And we've also heard from Indigenous-owned service companies from outside the Northwest Territories in the past. So please reach out, and we'd love to communicate with you.
That's great. Kayvon?
Yeah, same for us. We're always looking for partnerships from all over the place. As long as, there's value added for us as a company and our shareholders. We consider all opportunities, and I would be the right guy to actually contact with respect to this. And anybody who's got any ideas in terms of services or technologies that can help our operations, we're always more than happy to hear it, and our doors are open.
Jeff?
yeah, we would always encourage any cooperation with any groups moving forward, and that's something which we would certainly encourage. In terms of contacts, that would either be myself or in Canada, David Connolly in our Yellowknife office.
That's great. And you can certainly reach out to me as well, and I can forward it off to anyone. I'm just jessica@b-tv.com. Okay, so we're just about at the end for our first live question and answer. I'm just going to throw it out to the team if you guys had any closing thoughts to leave with investors out there on some, nuggets that are going to be coming up for your companies. Let's start with you, David.
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you, Jessica, for moderating. You've done a tremendous job, as always. I said that we've been involved with this initiative for a period of time now, and we've seen nothing but positive feedback, and you've helped grow our partnerships. So thank you for that. And I'd like to also thank the Northwest Territories, the community of Yellowknife, the Indigenous communities that we engage with. Also, I think this is an excellent context for discussion about what the opportunity is, not just for our shareholders, but for the community as well. And so Invest NWT has been a great experience. And, Goldterra is currently drilling our flagship target just next to the historic Con Mine. And we have tremendous amount of pent-up excitement. The drill is turning, and will be generating results for the market to absorb and get excited about as we continue in this gold bull market. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Kayvon?
Sure. Jessica, thank you. It's been great. And although the rest of the panel, David and Jeff, it's been great being on with you guys, and I've had a lot of fun. For us, we are a new team. I've been in the role for a couple of weeks, and we have a couple other new additions. So it's going to be a very exciting year for us at Nighthawk, as I said in my earlier comments. We are doing a lot of planning over the next few weeks before we open up our exploration camp. We're looking at being very aggressive in the region and increasing our activity and our efforts towards a really exciting and robust project over the next couple of years. And yeah, it's going. I think it's going to be a transformational year for us. We've had some meetings so far this year, as early as it's been, and we're actually getting a lot of excitement and positive feedback from our key relationships, whether it's the investment community or all the local and regional stakeholders. And it's something that nobody. The one comment that's come back to us is that nobody really doubted the quality of our assets. It's just the aggressive style and approach that we're undertaking right now is something that everybody's getting excited about. So yeah, stay tuned. There's going to be lots of news flow, and I'm looking forward to this year. It should be very exciting for Nighthawk.
Very good. Jeff, some final thoughts? Yeah,
look, first and foremost, thanks very much for the invitation and having me on, and to the other panelists today. Big news for us really is as we move into operations, as we coming over the next couple of months will be the mobilisation of the mining fleet, commencement of mining operations, and the first product being produced later on this year. And I think one final comment is from the number of messages I've had, it's good to see that Shirley the cat has proved popular to this panel, and she certainly believes that she is the star of the show.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again, the three of you, for joining us this morning. It's been a pleasure. And everyone who's watching, don't go anywhere, because we are going to now jump into our second panel discussion of the day. Welcome back to the Invest Northwest Territories Remote Roundup Session 2, sponsored by the Government of the Northwest Territories and Invest Canada North. I'm Jessica Katrachak from VTV Business Television. The Northwest Territories is known globally for its wealth of diamonds, Further, is filled with mining potential that includes gold, zinc, silver, lead, cobalt, rare earths, just to name a few. And we're joined by another 3 pivotal resource companies in the territory for today's second discussion: Fortune Minerals, Norzinc, and Osisko Metals. Thank you to those of you who are joining us as part of AMEBC. You can find us under the hashtag Remote Roundup virtual event this year. We invite everyone to let us know where they're tuning in from and join us in the chat feature during the session. Our panelists and their teams can connect with you throughout the fireside chat, and be sure to submit your questions for the live question and answer to follow. Welcome again to our panelists. Robin, please give us a brief description of Fortune Minerals and what makes your company stand out.
Thanks, Jessica, and thank you for inviting me to speak at this virtual workshop, as well as to the Northwest Territories. So my name is Robin Goad. I'm the president and CEO of Fortune Minerals Limited. We trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange under the symbol FT, that's Foxtrot Tango, as well as FTDMF on the bulletin board in the United States. So our company is a company that's been essentially incorporated initially to work in the Northwest Territories. We've been there for 32 years, and we have a very exciting project called the NICO project, which contains cobalt, gold, bismuth, and copper. The project is situated about 160 kilometers northwest of the city of Yellowknife, 50 kilometers north of the community of Wati, and it will be comprised of a mine and a concentrator situated there, as well as a refinery in southern Canada. And we're very excited about the opportunity to participate in critical minerals. This is new terminology which refers to minerals which are being used for technology, typically new technologies, as well as eco metals. And our project will be producing cobalt sulfate, which is consumed in lithium-ion batteries primarily, but also cobalt is used in aerospace alloys. We have a little over 1 million ounces of gold in our mineral reserves, which will contribute a co-product, and we have 12% of the global bismuth reserves, which is a relatively small byproduct for the project, but we will be the largest producer in the world. And this project is very advanced. We've spent $135 million to date. We've already been assessed in a bankable feasibility study. We've completed the environmental assessment for the development of the project in the Northwest Territories. We have the major mine permits. We've test mined the project. And even though it's an open pit, primarily deposit, we've also driven a decline ramp underground and collected large samples for pilot plant testing, verifying the process flow sheet, the commodities which we're going to produce, the recoveries. So it's a very advanced project. The refinery is also a great opportunity because our material will provide the base load for this facility. But then the business plan going forward is to be able to also process materials from other similar projects around North America, as well as waste residues and scrap metals, and also to participate in recycling. So this is a very interesting project and enabled by infrastructure, which we're going to talk about a little more later in the conversation. But there's a new access road being constructed by the government of the Northwest Territories, partially funded by the federal government. And this is a key enabler which is under construction, nearing completion, and allows our project to proceed.
Thank you very much, Robin. Don, Norzinc also has a very long history in the Northwest Territories. Can you give us a little bit more on its project background?
Sure. Thanks very much, Jessica. My name is Don McDonald. I'm the CEO of Norzinc. We're trading on Toronto Stock Exchange under the symbol NZC. And our project our major project is the Prairie Creek Mine. It was originally built in the 1980s as a silver mine, but when the silver prices dropped down, it was mothballed. In the last number of years, we've been focusing really on the zinc and the lead, as well as the silver at the project. It is a project with a feasibility study which was completed just over 3 years ago. I've been with the company for just over a couple of years myself. And the feasibility study had a reserve of 8 million tons of 23% zinc equivalent and 27 million tons of 27% zinc equivalent. The focus of the revenue from that was the silver really was not large. It was about 15 or 16% silver at the time the feasibility study was done. But based upon current prices, we're looking at a revenue from silver of almost 30%. So silver is an important factor in the project. It's located in the southwestern corner of the Northwest Territories, close to the BC border and the Yukon border. But it's located about 150 kilometers inland from the Highway 7. So we need to build a road out to the sites, and that represents about 25% of our capital. So support for infrastructure is really important for our project developing it. But what we're focusing on right now is increasing the reserves. We have a plan to carry out an exploration program. We're targeting an increase of 50% in our reserves, basically adding it in from those 7 million tons of inferred resources that we have, and also looking at an increased throughput. We believe that we can increase the throughput by about 50% from the feasibility level with a relatively modest amount of extra capital. Those obviously will make this mine into continue the long life of it. It will still be a 15-year mine life, but it'll produce about 50% more silver, zinc, and lead than the original feasibility study. The original feasibility study had a production of about 2 million ounces of silver and just under 200 million pounds of zinc and lead. And obviously we're looking at a 50% increase in those, which will make it a more significant silver producer. And we're hoping from our exploration this year to add extra reserves in, but also focusing again on the high-grade silver. The reserves are running at about 4 ounces per ton, and the resources are running about 5 ounces per ton silver. So it's a pretty good grade silver.
Oh, that's great. When you had mentioned that a lot had changed since the last time you and I had spoke a couple of years ago, you were absolutely right. So congratulations on that. Jeff, we interviewed Osisko Metals on our BTV Invest in Canada's North episode on BNN last year when the initiative first launched. So it's a pleasure to have you joining us again today. Can you tell us a bit more about Osisko Metals and what stage of development your operations are at in the Northwest Territories?
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, Jeff Hussey is President COO of Osisko Metals. We incorporated the company in 2017 and started looking for projects. And in 2018, we acquired Pine Point. In the last 3 years, we aggressively explored and drilled the project off. That's in the period we met. And we took the 2019 mineral resource base, which was 50 million tons of inferred resources at a equivalent lead plus zinc combined grade of about 6%. So Pine Point produced 64 million tons between the 60s and 1988, but they were producing at about a 10% lead zinc equivalent. Different from 90% of the projects globally that are underground, Pine Point is near surface open pittable mineralization. So we took that resource base and we started at the beginning, the first half of 2020, and we completed the PEA, very positive PEA in mid-year. We had an NPV of $500 million, an after-tax internal rate of return of 28.6, which is an excellent rate for a base metal project. And we're looking at this year in 2021, continuing to define resources, bringing them more resources that are drilled, but can be quickly brought into the indicated category for the feasibility study in the future. And also we're going to be looking at some of the capital expenditures, one including dewatering, our dewatering plan and management. We put a lot of dollars in the PEA. We're looking to reduce that. So we'll be doing a hydrogeological model this year, further de-risking the project. Looking again at the zinc prices this year because they're on the rise since the trench of COVID. We're somewhere between 125 and 130. Our study was done at 115. So if this trend continues, as we think it will, we would look at incorporating the work we do this year and bringing it into a PEA that we would update and release in the first half of 2022. We think through the zinc price changes, the reduction in capital expenditures, including the dewatering, and further indicated drilling, that we should be able to reduce costs, leading to even stronger financial metrics.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, let's move on to the fireside chat portion of this. So I'm going to ask a few questions, and we can take turns answering. I'll just go in the same order that we did our intros in. Let's start with doing a look back at 2020. Now, earlier today, we spoke with the other panelists really about gold and rare earths. So I'm excited to get your perspective on gold, tech metals, base metals, and zinc. Is gonna be a big one, obviously, for this session. So, how did the year come together for you, for your company? In 2020, there was obviously some challenges there with COVID. How did you overcome that? And just working in the region of the Northwest Territories in general. So, Robin, we're going to start with you.
Sure. Thanks, Jessica. So obviously 2020 was a year of great uncertainty. Yeah. We started the year with relatively normal conditions, and then unfortunately this pandemic arose, and obviously that threw a bit of a monkey wrench into a lot of our plans. Fortunately for our company, most of the site work has already been done. So the focus of our work in 2020 was devoted primarily towards project optimization. So we were, the focus of that optimization really fell into three different avenues. The first was mine scheduling. Our project is vertically integrated, comprised of activities that we'll do in the Northwest Territories, including mining and concentrating, and then a refinery. And quite frankly, the mining is very simple, low cost. The refining is where the money is spent. So the focus of scheduling higher quality material was part of the plan for this year, as well as reducing capital costs, and also working on an alternative refinery site, because we're looking at a brownfield site where we hope to be able to leverage existing facilities to dramatically reduce capital costs. We did do a little bit of exploration. We applied for and were awarded a grant from the Mineral Incentive Program in the Northwest Territories. We were a little concerned about halfway through the year whether we'd be able to actually conduct the field work to do this work. But we were able to do that, and we did a program of geophysics, because we have a very exciting opportunity in an IOCG or Olympic Dam style mineralization. And we looked at we did some geophysical surveying to test for potential expansions of that resource.
Don, how did 2020 shake out for Northink?
It was a mixed year. I mean, we were planning some site work to be done in 2020. We have water treatment that we have to carry out each year. And we were delayed by about 2 months in getting into site because of the COVID protocol that we had to work with the NWT on, and the local Indigenous people. Very important to keep the local community safe. But as this was going on, we were focusing as well on the potential for the project to increase its throughput and to increase its reserves. We had hoped to do a drilling program starting as early as September, an underground drill program. That proved just impossible. So we carried out a surface drill program late in the year, and we have a deposit which is 1.3 kilometers long. It's 400 meters deep, and it's in depth, and it's about 2 to 7 meters in width. And that's just the reserve. The resource is another kilometer down dip from that. But we carried out some drilling. We drilled just outside of the reserve envelope, and we hit 4 meters, more than 4 meters of over 50% zinc equivalent, with some excellent silver grades, well over 5-6 ounces per ton. And we hit a brand new zone which had 4 intercepts, which averaged about 5 meters at over 40% zinc equivalent. So we're very excited by that program. But that got shut down because of weather. It got really cold on the site, so we had to shut it down early. We're hoping to restart that next year.
Very good. Jeff, how about was 2020 like for Osisko Metals?
Well, like everyone, we were drilling in the beginning of the year. Once COVID started, we had shut down prior. We returned in the middle of the summer. We were on care and maintenance, but we came back. We had protocols. We had one drill turning for a fall program. We got excellent results. We were drilling some of the deposits. We pulled a hole of 29 meters of over close to 24%. So some of the prismatic mineralization that we were drilling, we want to get back and do more of that. But as I mentioned at the beginning, it was largely a Zoom conference period between March and mid-year, whereby we were working with consultants and doing a lot of conference calls to get the project advanced. So in that aspect, it worked okay. The camp was on care and maintenance. We started up again end of the summer. And then, as I said, we continued drilling till October, November, and we've continued to plan on the project for the second half of the year. So we've done a lot of remote work, but we were active on the ground.
That's good to hear. Okay, we've all chosen to explore and advance projects in the Northwest Territories. What makes it, in your opinion, an attractive area for mining and exploration? Robin.
Well, the first thing I should probably say is just how important mining is to the economy of the Northwest Territories.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so about 25% of Northwest Territories GDP is derived directly from mining, and roughly 45% with the indirect expenditures through service providers. So you have a jurisdiction where we have almost a symbiotic relationship. We really they need to be supporting mining because it is essentially the most important private sector component of the economy. Then I'd probably go on to talk about the endowment of the mineral endowment of the Northwest Territories. It's relatively unexplored, and we're talking about world-class mineral potential and mineral deposits that can still be found largely on the ground. So, for example, our company is exploring a unique mineral resource type called Olympic Dam, or IOCG. And some of these deposits, global analogs, including the Olympic Dam mine in Australia, is 8.3 billion tons. The Carajás deposits in Brazil are well over 1 billion tons. The Candelaria deposits in Chile have clusters of deposits which are well over 1 billion tons. So that's the kind of mineral potential that we're looking for, and whether it be an IOCG that I'm exploring or lead zinc deposits like Jeff and Don are exploring, there's world-class mineral potential here. We've seen that with the diamonds. We're the second largest producer of diamonds, I believe, in the world, but the diamond story, unfortunately, is coming to a bit of an end, and we have to develop new projects. So very important that the projects that we're talking about here today get developed to be able to sustain the operations. And I would just also have to point out that we have very broad buy-in from the Indigenous communities on mining in the Northwest Territories as well, for the same reason that the Northwest Territories government supported, because we have to have mining.
Thank you, Robbie. Yeah, the geological potential in Northwest Territories is huge. I mean, it's the second of the largest of the 3 territories, and it's, as you had mentioned, vastly unexplored. So lots more potential there for sure. Don, what, in your opinion, makes the Northwest Territories an attractive area for mining?
Well, it's because, as Robin said, it's got a lot of history of mining, particularly around Yellowknife, particularly on the gold, and then obviously more recently on the diamond side. But the potential, I think, really is on the base metals and on the strategic metal side, as Robin, Jeff, and myself have. There are more deposits available to develop of those high grade, whether they be cobalt, bismuth, or they be like Jeff and myself with zinc and silver and lead in them. The difference, though, is the economics for those are quite different from from gold and diamonds. We have a lot of costs of transportation. And therefore, and our margins tend to be, I'm afraid, lower than they are for the diamond mines and for the gold mines. So infrastructure support is really critical. So it's great to do business in the NWT, but the infrastructure is a holdback for the potential development for many of the projects in the territories.
Thank you for that. Jeff, what is your perspective on, what makes the Northwest Territories an attractive area for mining and exploration?
Well, we were looking at the supply-demand fundamentals of zinc and looking for good projects. And with base metal projects, as has been mentioned, infrastructure is key. So we looked at many, many projects and used three filters. One was infrastructure, one was metallurgy, and exploration upside. We found all three at Pine Point. When we speak of infrastructure, Pine Point is part of the mining history of the Northwest Territories. They produced 25 years, as I mentioned, over 64 million tons. So they built a railway from Edmonton to Hay River and inward to the project. Part of that railway was removed since it closed down in '88. But we have a railhead in Hay River, paved highway access all the way to the project, and an electrical substation that's located where Cameco's former concentrator was located, and where we plan in the PEA, and probably where we'll end up right next to that substation. So with those three large cost components, we're mainly looking at building the project again. On infrastructure, we also benefit at the site. There's over 100 kilometers of 25-meter haul roads. All of this is open pittable, so the roads that connect all these deposits that were mined, and most of the ones that we're looking at, there's already haul roads that are in good condition. We just got to put a blade down. So having that infrastructure in place is key. Secondly, as I mentioned, Pine Point is a world-class deposit in itself. Having produced 64 million tons, we have a mineral resource estimate with 50. That's a world-class zinc.
Is there any advantages that kind of stick out in your mind to having a project in the Northwest Territories compared to other places in North America? I'll start. I know you have something to say, Jeff. I'll start with Robin and then get his perspective there.
Well, I think we've really hit on the major advantages: the geological endowment, and the necessity for having mining in the Northwest Territories. You can't have fishing or agriculture or manufacturing up there. It's really dependent on the mining community for jobs, for tax base and wealth. I think it's been pointed out that by both Jeff and Don, the importance of infrastructure. Our project is also very critically involves infrastructure, and we were fortunate we went through a similar process to what Jeff talked about. If you're looking for base metal deposits, that the concentrate has to be shipped out to a process facility, then you have to have a mechanism for getting that material out, whether it be navigable water, whether it be railroads or trucks. And the government of the Northwest Territories, together with the government of Canada, are funding an all-season road to the community of Wati. And that, as I mentioned earlier, is a key enabler for our project. So we've been working with governments to get the support we need to develop our project, and we've been getting that kind of support, which we're very pleased with the acknowledgement of the importance of the project, and we've been working with governments to try and put together the critical components that need to go into a producing operation.
Thank you, Don. What advantages do you see, based on your experience, in the mining community for quite a long time, compared to working in the Northwest Territories rather than other maybe projects in North America?
Well, I think, one needs to look globally. I think looking in our area of zinc mines, they are located all around the world in some of the most difficult locations in the world. Our deposit, based upon reserves, so it doesn't bring in Jeff's deposit into that analysis, is the third highest grade zinc lead mine, undeveloped zinc lead mine in the world. The other two are in in DRC, and in Indonesia. And if you look at the top 7 in terms of size, most of them are in more remote countries and less stable countries than Canada. So I think the Canadian side is important to us. NWT is really good. The people we're involved with on the permitting side, on the regulatory side, are super supportive of mining, and that's really good. I think the downside of doing business in the NWT is just the cost, and it's just the problem of being in the north of Canada in general is the cost of doing business is so high. But so we have to be blessed with high-grade projects in order to compensate for that cost, which we, all 3 of us, are on this call.
Jeff, what is your perspective on this?
We've talked about this before on other panels, and Northwest Territories is a safe jurisdiction to be in. We're in Canada. The permitting process is known. For investors, that's important. And so one of the points that I brought up on another panel was the accessibility of the government. If you're in Ontario or Quebec with large governments, it can take a long while to communicate with the upper level of the Department of Natural Resources, et cetera, or some of the ministers or deputy ministers. But in the Northwest Territories, I think everyone on the panel would agree that we have good access to speak with the government. The Chamber of Mines, were involved on the Chamber of Mines, all 3 of us. And it's a very well-connected network of people that are interested in the mining industry because of the points that Robin and Dawn have brought up. It's a huge wealth potential. When we look at exploration and development and why Canada is such a large mining strength, mineral potential is somewhat based on surface area, and the territories have it in spades. So there's lots of area. It's a lot of untested potential, world-class potential. I think that's the advantage of going to the Northwest Territories and developing. Sure, the costs are a little higher, but that's where you have to select your project.
Well, let's talk about, I mean, we've already touched on infrastructure, quite a few times, and some of the positives, but let's talk about some of the negatives that need to be addressed in the Northwest Territories, and maybe some ways that, ideas that you might have to help fix that. I know you talked about high costs. I know electricity is quite high, I read, for costs in the Northwest Territories. So let's go through and maybe talk about some of the biggest challenges you see there, and some ways that you feel like they could be improved. So we'll start with you, Robin.
Sure. Good topic, because as Dawn has already mentioned, the Northwest Territories is a high-cost jurisdiction. And we have an infrastructure deficit that is a study was done by the Mining Association of Canada and the PDAC, which indicates that capital costs for a project are commonly 2.5 times greater than similar projects that are located in the south. Operating costs are commonly significantly more, and that's because most mineral projects that are developed in the territories have to supply their own infrastructure. All 3 of the projects that you're hearing about in this session are located in the southern part of the Northwest Territories. And generally speaking, we've got pretty good infrastructure, particularly Jeff's project, which is a past producer, and Dawn's and our project is also close to highways. Power is expensive. You're probably looking at power costs of sort of between 25 cents kilowatt hour in the Northwest Territories versus, somewhere between, 4.5 cents in Manitoba, 6 cents in 6.9 cents, I believe, in Alberta, 7.2 in Saskatchewan. And power is a very significant component to our cost structure. Obviously, labor. If you're operating a remote camp facility, you've got to bring in particularly some of your skilled positions from the south. There's transportation costs involved with that, accommodation costs. So I think we kind of beat the cost thing a little bit. Also, regulatory issues. And access to land is certainly an issue. You've got land claims, which make land tenure a little bit more complicated in the Northwest Territories, as well as as conflicting and overlapping regulatory authorities. But generally speaking, we like to sort of, we're all working in the Northwest Territories because we think the mineral potential exceeds the some of the negatives that are associated with high costs and regulatory issues.
Mm-hmm. Don, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, a couple of points here. You mentioned the cost increase, the higher levels of cost, and the power side here. For our project here, we are going to be producing primarily from LNG, so that is going to be a more environmentally friendly source of power. It would be really good if our power costs were lower, so that we could electrify our underground equipment and reduce greenhouse gases as a result of that. We have a very small footprint, environmental footprint, which is also good, just because of the way our project is designed with 100% backfill. It means that we don't have any big tailings dams. But in terms of the infrastructure access, the government, there are funds available. There's a thing called National Trade Corridors Fund, which is providing funds to support communities. And there's no question that mining, in two factors, our project and other projects, they will provide significant GDP to the country. We're looking in our feasibility study about $3.5 billion of revenue, and obviously we're looking at something being 50% higher than that in terms of, and that is exported primarily. 50% higher than that if we're successful with our expansion designs, and also we support the communities by employment. We have good relationships with our communities. I know there's going to be a question about that later on, but Rob did mention that. I think the community relationships are critical, but right now we feel very happy with those. But we would like some support with the infrastructure, because our road is more than 25% of the capital cost to build our mine is based upon the road, and having some support for that, because of the tremendous benefit to the communities, would be very helpful for us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Don. Jeff?
Yeah, the main one I would touch on would be electricity. The Tulston Dam, there is room for some expansion and optimization, and we're talking to the Northwest Territories Power Corporation to see what we can do there. But there's also been discussions of a much larger ramp up at the Tulston Dam, and that would benefit the Northwest Territories very much so, because it's planned to bring it over to Yellowknife, reduce diesel power, and then go up the access road they're building through the Great Slave Geological Province, and help to generate more projects. So the challenge for the territories would be to get more cheap, green hydroelectric power. I think that would be a benefit to all, the residents and for proponents coming in to develop. I'd like to add as well, with regard to the communities, all of them are welcoming. They want to see the economic development, especially on the south side of the Slave, because the diamond mines were mainly located on the north side of the Slave, Great Slave Lake. And so I think that with the community support, with the territorial government support, I think we all have opportunities here to create value and move forward. That's the advantages. The power, the more green power you could get. We'll be doing some trade-off studies to see if we can further that. But as in Don's case, we included natural gas as a component to reduce emissions, and we will continuously look for ways to either reduce consumption of electricity or find green alternatives as much as is possible.
That actually leads into my next question, which is ESG. So it was one of the hottest topics, of 2020, and continues to be very relevant, and will obviously for years to come. Can you explain to me the processes within your companies to address investors' growing concerns and interest in seeing metrics met on ESG? So we're going to start with you, Robin.
Yeah, that's we could talk a lot of things about ESG. So
first, we have about 10 minutes left. Full disclosure.
So the first thing I've just pointed out is the commodities we're going to produce are very important for new technologies, but also eco metals for a greener planet. Bismuth, for example, is used as a environmentally safe and non-toxic replacement for lead. But I want to leave that because I think we should be concentrating more on the community benefits and the interaction we have with, particularly with the indigenous communities and governments. So our project's been discovered in '96. As mentioned earlier, we spent a lot of money, and we've always been working with the local Tlicho indigenous people and made them part of the project. When you go through an environmental assessment, you're also essentially balancing the important ESG sort of parameters, including the economic benefits, and balancing those with the environmental impacts as well as the social impacts. And we've gone through an environmental assessment, and that assessment was approved not only by the federal government, but the territorial government, but also the Tlicho indigenous government, because we are in a settled land claim where there is a self-government and land claims already completed between the Tlicho, the Northwest Territories, and federal governments. And so we have our company's completed an access agreement with the Tlicho. We've got a cooperation agreement. We're working on an impact and benefit agreement, and we have a socioeconomic agreement also completed with the Northwest Territories governments, which has certain targets for northern and indigenous employment, training, social programs, all kinds of things. When you're developing and building and operating mines in all over the world these days, the local communities have to benefit. It's part of our social license, and we go through a very lengthy process to make sure that that's going to happen, whether through the exploration, through the permitting and the engineering, permitting, operations, and also through mine closure.
Thank you, Robin. Don, what are your perspectives on and some plans that NorthZinc has in place on the ESG side, as well as what your involvement is with the Indigenous community?
Yep. Well, as Robin said, mining nowadays, we take a tremendous amount of care to make sure that we are environmentally friendly. The rules in the Northwest Territories are some of the most stringent in the world. Anybody who's involved in building a mine in Canada, but particularly in the Northwest Territories, can be rest assured that we are meeting the most stringent standards. So that's very great for the environment. In terms of the Indigenous communications and communities, as with Robin's project, we have a socioeconomic agreement with a dozen different communities, 9 different First Nations, and we have a arrangement on a first name basis with the leaders of the 3 most important nations in our community here. We take it at the highest level. The chiefs like to talk to the senior people, and as a CEO, I directly interact with them on leading all of the negotiations with the communities, which, like others here, has been very positive. So I think it's really important that we have that social license, and I think we in Canada in general do that in quite a good way. I think mining in particular does it in an excellent way with the communities. The one area that we do, and dealing with the NWT and the government has been very good. We do have one area that I think some of us are suffering from, and that is the regulations with regards to mine development permits, which is where all of us are in. We're in the mine development. We're not in the exploration side here. We have a water license that gives you up to 25 years, which is essentially life of mine. But we have a land use permit, which gives you 5 years and then another 2 years beyond it. And there's a movement to discuss that we need to align. Once you're going to get your permit for a mine, that you need to get it for the life of the mine and not just for 5 or 7 years. We already got our permits to operate the mine in 2013, and we have now gone through a renewal process for them, which really, isn't like what happens in the rest of the world. So that's an area that needs to be improved.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Don, for that perspective. Jeff, let's move on to you on this topic.
Yeah, sure. Well, safety, environmental stewardship, social responsibility, these are core values. In all angles, we We've all been in the industry for a long time, and we've been developing this approach along with everyone in the industry. And as Don said, we have very stringent regulations. So we follow all three pillars of ESG. With regard to agreements, early on, I'm a little earlier phase than both Don and Robin. We're trying to move fast to catch up. Yeah, we have agreements with the Denenukwe First Nation and Fort Resolution, and a collaboration agreement that was announced last year, in 2019. And so with the collaboration agreement with the Denenukwe First Nation and also another one with the Northwest Territory Métis Nation, we were able to advance and expand our ground to incorporate more resources, and that was rolled into the PA we mentioned at the beginning of the call. So you can see there's quite a lot of collaboration to try and get this project going. And with the Katalodiche First Nation and Hay River, we've had an exploration agreement since 2017. There's a little less work in that area, but we're constantly communicating with all three communities and trying to develop what was mentioned by my co-panelists, opportunities for employment, opportunities for training. We're looking at that right now as well, and other benefits that will come. But we have to get through the development and permitting phase in order to really generate we'll call it the lion's share of the benefits that will come during production. So at this stage of resource development, we're not a cash flow company, and we do what we can. We get out there, we meet with all the people we can, and we talk about the permitting stages and the impact benefit agreements that will come. Those discussions will be increasing. Now that we have our PA in hand, we'll be talking about these benefits and benefit agreements as we go towards our permitting.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have about 2 minutes left before we need to jump into our question and answer live session. So make sure, I'm hoping that everyone's getting their questions in. Keep them coming, and we'll get to them really quickly here. But before we jump into that, I just want to get everyone's perspective outlook for commodities for 2021. We mentioned a little bit earlier, you know, some positives that came out of 2020. So how do we see, we're at the beginning of 2021, how do we see the rest of the year kind of shaken out, you know, for zinc and cobalt and base metals? Let's start with you, Robin.
Okay, again, I'll try to be brief because this is
okay. Thanks.
So our primary commodity is cobalt, and we are one of the most advanced development projects for cobalt in the world. Cobalt is a critical mineral. The U.S. has a list, the European Union has a list, and these are minerals that have essential use in manufacturing or defense industries and new technologies. They can't be easily substituted, and their supply chains are at risk. And why the cobalt supply chains at risk is because 70% of the global mine production comes from not so democratic Republic of the Congo. About 50% of that production is controlled by China. 65% of refinery production is controlled by China, and about 80% of cobalt chemical supply is controlled by China. So there's been recognition, broadly speaking, in governments, particularly in the European Union and the United States, about the dangers in having geographic concentration of supply. And supplies that can be influenced by policy risks as well as political instability. So both cobalt and bismuth are critical minerals. We think the outlook is extremely good, particularly for cobalt because of electric cars. With growing adoption of electric vehicles, we expect that the cobalt market will exceed its historical growth of 8% compounded annual growth rate. And we're expecting the market to double or triple over the next 10 years, primarily on the back of electric cars and stationary storage. Bismuth, a little bit similar. We have 75% of the production controlled by China. Very important metal with critical physical properties that can't be easily duplicated. And then we have over 1 million ounces of gold. And gold, we hope will continue its upward trajectory. We've had a bit of a down date today, but we personally expect gold to be in excess of $2,000 an ounce US. And we're also expecting the cobalt price to recover to its historical average of around $25 per pound.
Very good. Don, what is your perspective on the zinc outlook for 2021?
It's very positive. We have seen it was in a kind of a doldrum over the last few years here. It did peak at $1.60 a pound in February of 2018. Our feasibility study was done at $1.10 a pound. We're now at about $1.26, 27 today, which is good because it was languishing below around $1, and I think below $1 for a period of time. Long term, it is great for the environment. It's clearly, as Jeff I'm sure will tell you, it's got lots of usages beyond just simply galvanizing, but it's a great commodity. For us, silver is also important. Silver has really broken out. It's down a little bit today. But certainly if it's in the $25, $26 or above per ounce level, that's very critical and important for us. And we've got a long life project as well here. So with 15 years of life, that's right now, that you're able to hit the cycles, and that's really important in our industry, not just what it is today, but what it's going to be over the next 15 years.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. Jeff, what is your perspective on this?
For 2021 and beyond, we're very bullish on zinc. COVID, obviously, the production is reeling a little bit, having a hard time catching up with that constraint. But in the past several years, there's been large zinc mines that have shut down worldwide. Supply is diminishing. We're at critically low levels, 200,000 tons a day, 300,000 are about 10 days supply. That's when you get out of critical. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing now is that the uncertainty that we're just getting through, which has benefited mainly the gold price, which is a typical mining cycle. Gold comes in strong when uncertainty is high. And now that we have a vaccine and the elections completed, basically we're going to see huge stimulus globally to get the economic development that people want to see in the global economy. There's not huge numbers out of China that are stated what they would like to build out. The Americans also have old infrastructure. Here in Montreal, we just spent a lot of money on infrastructure because after 50 years at Expo 67 here, the steel rusts. So China right now is putting out huge amounts of steel, producing 60% of global steel as usual. Iron ore prices are very high. So half of that steel has to get galvanized. And on critically low inventories, we think it's looking very bullish for zinc going forward and also for lead.
That's excellent news. I think this is a great point to end the fireside chat portion with our panelists here as we second session for Invest Northwest Territories. Again, you can find us at #RemoteRoundup. We're going to do a quick thank you to our sponsors, so please don't go anywhere. And then we're going to jump right into the live question and answer period with our attendees.
What are the sources of energy currently? What are the opportunities and plans for using renewables?
We've done a lot of sensitivities in working our project forward. We've looked at, we're only 22 kilometers from the Snare hydroelectric facility. However, there is unfortunately, there's not a surplus amount of power that we can utilize. So connecting to the grid is something that is a future opportunity. So we've looked at compressed gas, we've looked at green energy alternatives, including wind and solar. And what we're settling on right now is building a turnkey natural gas, LNG-fired system where you're not only getting the energy from produced from natural gas generation, but also the heat recovery with glycol heat recovery systems, which is also very important in the energy component to operating in northern jurisdictions.
Very good. Thanks so much for that. Let's move on to you, Don.
Yeah, the old mine, the old Cadillac silver mine was built with diesel power on site. We've been using diesel power since we took over the project in the 1990s. But our plans for development of the project, our consumption from the feasibility study was a maximum of 11 megawatts. With a 50% increase in throughput, that will go up. And our plan is to do a co-production that is primarily focused on LNG, but when there are occasions when the LNG may be down, you've got the capacity to switch to diesel. So that's our plan, and definitely it's a great improvement environmentally over the original design for the project. With diesel, the other factor that we would hope to have, and maybe we will have, and that is the ability to mine underground as an underground operation using electric equipment. But that's in early days right now. That's just it wasn't in the feasibility study, so it's something we're considering right now. Bring us to the forefront because that's where the business is going. Underground mining with electrification is the way to go, and Canada is leading that in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Jeff, let's get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, Pine Point benefits from the Tulston Hydro Dam being built and connected to our site. So we have the substation already where the former Cominco concentrator was. Currently on the grid, there's about 5 to 8 megawatts, depending on the season. There's a potential to increase that by potentially 4 megawatts in the shorter term. And we will be working with the Northwest Territory Power Corporation to see if we can at least crystallize that. We look forward to that further expansion discussed earlier during the panel, which would help all of us, I think, if the power dam could increase significantly. But to your question, we're using as much of the renewable hydroelectric power on the grid that it will be available. And then we will combine it, as my co-panelists have just said, with natural gas to generate the power needed and try to reduce emissions that way. In the upcoming PA that we're going to look at, the other thing we want to do is try to reduce consumption to start by reducing power requirements where we can.
Very good. My next question is just directed to Robin. Robin, can you talk a bit more about critical minerals and their importance in, North America to the economy?
Sure. So we talked a little bit about critical minerals before and how they're defined, and that both the United States and the European Union have got critical minerals lists. But critical minerals are a little bit different than traditional base metal deposits, and they can't be processed in conventional smelters. So typically we need to build our own vertically integrated hydrometallurgical facilities, which does increase the capital costs for the development. So we're looking at a transformation that's happening in the automotive industry right now, where I've got a picture in my head of a 1913 image of New York City. And it's there's absolutely no automobiles in that picture. It's all horse and buggies. And then just a few years later, there's no horses left. It's all cars. And we're going through a transformation right now in the automotive industry into electric cars, which has not really been seen since that latter sort of transformation of the automobile industry. So we have to have the raw materials that are going to supply the key raw materials into the batteries, for the drivetrains, for the components that are in this automotive industry. And if we don't, we're not going to have a manufacturing sector. So I think that has to be understood that raw materials are essential to sustain our manufacturing sector. And that really means that our high standard of living, which is dependent on the revenues generated from manufacturing and raw material production, and the social programs that benefits from that, we need to get new projects built as soon as possible, and we have to have those materials produced in Canada. And when I say produced, it's not just mining them. We have to do the processing here in North America, because if you simply export your raw material, to another jurisdiction, you're not making those materials available to the manufacturing industry here in our domestic economy. So we have been working with the federal government. We've been working with the territorial government as well as provincial governments in trying to enable support for processing plants that will allow those materials to be produced here domestically and to sustain our industry.
Very good. Dawn, I actually have a question just directed to you now, and it's about weather. Does weather have an effect on your project? Bit of an interesting question there.
Well, yes. I mean, we are in the northern Canada, and it gets very cold at night time, and during the winter months. So you have to build a project that will deal with cold temperatures, which is a skill that Canadians have, and a lot of firms. I worked for De Beers for a short period of time, and when I worked for them, they had at that time, and just 20 years ago, that they had very little knowledge of building in a cold climate. So, we got railroads who to deal with the construction in cold climates. We do have extraordinary benefit in the Northwest Territories for those that can build ice roads that they are possible. And in fact, our road access to the mine as it's going to be built includes an ice bridge process that will be used during the winter. So cold temperatures actually help us there. But you have to recognize that the weather will affect the way that you're going to carry on your activities. We are blessed. I'm not sure whether it's the same for Robin and Jeff's station, but we're blessed with an area which is, although it gets cold, it is dry and it has very low snow. I was involved in projects in northern British Columbia, and they have humongous amounts of snow. So we do benefit from that in our location, that we don't have a lot of snow, which can create a lot of problems with transportation.
Did anybody else have anything to add on for weather related?
I would only just point out the fact that all three of these projects are situated in the southwest part of the territories. If you look at the diamond mines where they're operating right now in the tundra, they've been successfully conducting open pit operations for 20 years. Weather is not going to be an issue for mining in the Northwest Territories. We in Canada have proven our ability to operate successfully, not only in mining and concentration and the support facilities that are required, and we can do that in an open pit mine virtually at temperatures as low as -50.
Did you have any other anything to add to this? Otherwise, I have a question directed towards you.
I concur with my colleagues here. We work and operate in the subarctic and further north. The Polaris mine was much further north. On the south side of the Great Slave Lake, we benefit from, it's a lower snowfall, but there's nothing stopping you from operating in winter months. And at our project, there's no permafrost. Where I used to work at Raglan, the rock was frozen to 500 meters, so we don't have that to worry about.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, Jeff, I have a question that's directed towards you, and then I have some more group questions too to get to, and keep them coming, everybody. What makes the Pine Point project unique, Jeff?
Well, the Pine Point 1, having been in production before, it's a brownfield project with all the infrastructure there. As we said, the railroad head is at Hay River. It was built for this project, the Talston Power Dam with the substation on site, and about 100 kilometers of haul roads that exist from the Cominco era. So on the infrastructure side, it's very beneficial. Could you just repeat the question again?
What makes your Pine Point project unique?
On the unique side, yeah. So the thing about it's like Polaris and some of the Mississippi Valley type projects down in the southeast of the States. And these are typically lead and zinc in limestone, contrary to some other deposits where VMS from the Bathurst mining camp, there's a lot more pyrite, iron, acid mine drainage, etc. With the limestone presence, there's a less of an environmental footprint. The difference in the geology also makes a difference in the processing where there's, again, lead, zinc, and limestone. Well, the recoveries are exceptional. We get into the high 80s, low 90s for both lead and zinc. So our recoveries, which is one of the key variables of an economic formula, is to get good recoveries. On top of that, we have an exceptionally clean concentrate. It's probably one of the cleanest concentrates in the world. Right now, many zinc projects are delivering concentrates that have deleterious elements, and that's the name of the game with traders and smelters. They receive different profiles of different concentrates. All of them are going to need a little bit of fine point to dilute down the deleterious elements in their concentrates. What makes it unique as well is all of the mineralization is above 125 meters. So we're mining open pit. 90% of the zinc projects are underground. Most of the infrastructure is there. And as I said, we just put out our PEA last year with exceptional results, 500 MPV, $500 million MPV with a 26.8 internal rate of return. So these are strong, fundamental economic metrics that we think we can improve on with the work of de-risking that we're going to do this year and put out our second updated PEA in the first half of 2021. We should be able to reduce the cost, and we think we'll be in a different price regime due to the government-backed stimulus packages that are on their way with this, what I consider an inflection point in the next couple of days during the change of the American election.
Thank you for that, Jeff. Our next question was actually asked at our first panel question and answer as well. It's a really good one, comes from Hart. He wants to ask this group the same question. Are there opportunities for Indigenous-owned service companies from outside the Northwest Territories to provide support in the areas of Indigenous engagement and environmental services? If so, whom can we connect with to discuss? So we're going to start with you, Robin.
Sure. I guess first we have to say that we've completed a socioeconomic agreement whose objective is to primarily maximize the business opportunities to northern residents, but also Indigenous communities. So having said that, it's virtually impossible to run a mining operation on 100% owned local employment and business providers. So absolutely, there's going to be opportunities. We will go through a tendering process. There will be a scoring process, which we expect that obviously local businesses are going to have a certain advantage because we want to be able to have the benefits provided to local communities. But mining involves a lot of different skill sets and knowledge and expertise, and we will be counting on these services also coming from outside of the Northwest Territories.
Excellent. Thank you. Over to you with that same question, Don.
Yes, we're in a similar situation to Robin with a socioeconomic agreement with the GNWT, which has a hierarchy. Initially, at the top level, it's the directly local communities, and then it's a little bit wider community area, which covers, I think I misspoke here, I think it's 12 First Nations, 9 communities. 28% of the communities in the Northwest Territories are a part of our socioeconomic agreement. But then it goes to the Northwest Territories and it goes to Canada. And just the same way as it applies with Fortune Minerals, we're no doubt going to be using people from other parts in Canada. In our case, our transportation is likely to go through Fort St. John and perhaps Fort Nelson and perhaps down to Fort St. John. So there are Indigenous groups there that definitely can benefit us. The questions seem to also talk about environment, particularly, and just want to mention with us, we have an environmental management agreement with our local communities in which they have representatives who monitor the environmental management, particularly on our road access. So that's an area where we have our direct communities directly involved in the monitoring process. And I think that's critical for our project. But then finally, in terms of the businesses, we are encouraging through a series of different agreements, local businesses. We have stimulation programs. We do them directly. We also do them with organizations like the Mine Training Society. We do that with Aurora College. They are part of what we called the NWT Regional Committee, and we involve, all of the local communities within that committee structure.
Wonderful. Thank you, Don. Jeff, over to you.
Yeah, right now with at an exploration stage on the site, we've been doing our best to reach out to the communities, have some local, either through us or our service suppliers to work on the project, some training, limited at this stage on the training. We're looking at developing more opportunities in training. At this early stage, as I said earlier, the lion's share of the benefits and the service requirements are going to come when our projects are shovel ready and go into construction. And that's what we're all striving to do. At the earlier stages of exploration, it's a little bit more limited just due to the level of activity. But if any one of these projects continues on, gets the permits, that's where a lot of services will be required. And I think to the question where service suppliers outside of the territories would to reach out to us, and we're open to listening to collaborations. But right now, with the limited amount of activity, we're focused on our local communities with the level of work at this point in time.
Okay, very good. And I think the question was asked there who to connect with to discuss this, but he could certainly email me, Hart, and I could forward your email off like we had mentioned in the earlier question and answer too. And I'm just jessica@b-tv.com. Easy. We have another question here for the group, and it's been asked a few times, so I'll just kind of paraphrase here. Would there be an interest in information on the anonymous mobile clean energy system? If you guys are familiar with that. So we'll start with you, Robin.
You're going to have to rephrase the question because I'm. What exactly are you asking?
I think it's autonomous.
Yes, autonomous. Yes, thank you. Mobile cleaning energy system and autonomous mining on the horizon in general for any of your
autonomous
projects.
Equipment generally. Yeah, sure. It's certainly coming. It's actually a big threat to local employment because at some point you're probably going to be able to operate a scoop tram or a haul truck remotely, it's the automotive industry is also heading that way as well. So it's inevitable and something that we're going to have to manage around and ensure that that local businesses and also employees benefit from our projects. In terms of energy production, I mean it's constantly evolving. Energy is the second highest cost component in mining operations. We're hoping that we're actually going to go into renewable energy, and I don't know how that's going to be autonomous, but there is a run-a-river project about 50 kilometers south of our project, which we hope will get developed within the mine life of our asset and contribute energy from a green renewable source. In the meantime, we're using natural gas or LNG to start the mine up. I'm not sure if that answered the question because, but in terms of autonomous equipment, it's inevitable. I'm not sure about the energy.
Okay, Don, over to you.
Yeah, we're underground operation. A lot of these autonomous systems are used in open pits, particularly in Australia, where they'll have people in Perth, running trucks that are 1,000 kilometers away. With underground, the kind of what we do have and we will have is there'll be a certain level of a remote underground. I was in an underground mine 20 years ago, and the scoop tram was basically directed from a control center underground, where the person could see where he was scooping the ore from, and it was really a safety thing. The technology has advanced significantly here, but I think it's kind of our big area would be the potential for electrification underground, and then ultimately, we don't have an open pit. We never will have an open pit on this project, so I think there's less scope for us in terms of it. So we will inevitably be requiring skilled people to help us with the mining. And on the energy side here, you know, the actual underground equipment doesn't consume a huge amount of energy. The biggest energy consumer is generating power for the mill.
Thank you so much, Don. Jeff, what's your perspective on this?
Well, as was said, automation is here to stay. Everything from when I used to work in concentrators where there was people adjusting all the levels of the reagents, that's run by algorithms now, and double-checked and triple-checked. They have significant amount of automation within the mill. That reduces some walking around on the floor within a mill. Underground, we have very limited underground, but in a larger underground, it's, yes, automated trucks from distance, automated drills are coming more and more. Where we see a possibility that we did discuss within the project is we have 47 different pits that we're going to be mining the shallow mineralization from. So putting a drill, maybe the small drill, the drill and blast, could be automated with a pattern. But once blasted, the rock to haul it out of the pit to get it to the road would be difficult because the pits are small. You see automation in large iron ore mine pits or other larger pits. However, when we want to haul that truck all the way to the concentrator to dump a load, that could easily be automated. So in other words, one person at an open pit could be driving 3 trucks in and out of the pit and then just getting off on a stage and letting that truck do the long haul, hop on a new truck, go back in the pit, etc. So that's where I see the potential in our project. We do see some automation in the concentrator as well that will be integrated, where as all concentrators are highly automated now. And you'll be able to do that to you know, I think it's going on 15, 20 years now. You can have your mill on an iPad. You don't have to be sitting in the concentrator, watching a monitor that's connected to the floor. You can look at it on an iPad from any distance and see what's going on in the mill, what are the reagent, whatever level of detail you would want, which is also an advantage for that kind of work. But all in all, it is coming, and it is one of the significant ways to reduce costs in operations. And at the end of the day, that's one of the sets of rules we have to abide by. It has to be economic, so lowering costs is always an area we look at.
Thank you so much for that. I think we have time left for a few more questions here. Robin, this one's directed to you. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Nico deposit and what makes it unique?
Yeah, so I did touch on this earlier, that it's an IOCG, which are very large mineral class. And ours is a little bit of an unusual deposit in that the economic metals are gold and cobalt primarily, with a byproduct bismuth and copper. We have a satellite project, Sudayan, which is a 10 million ton deposit of 0.8% copper. And being an IOCG, we think there is tremendous exploration opportunities. The deposit itself, our deposit is 33 million tons right now, 33.1 million tons. We have another 10 million tons in Sudayan. But we expect that there will be significant exploration expansion. Both of these deposits are open along strike and at depth. The geophysical anomalies that are associated with NICO itself are 20 square kilometers in size. We have the largest and strongest hydrothermal potassium anomaly ever found by the Geological Survey of Canada associated with the deposit. And that's about 15 square kilometers in size. So what this is more or less saying is we have an enormous hydrothermal system with a class of mineral deposit that is typically much larger than the ore reserves and mineral resources that we've already identified. And we're expecting that there will be significant expansion of this asset in the future, which bodes well because you're investing money in infrastructure, investing money in a processing plant, and the more tons you can put through that and amortize the costs that are associated with that infrastructure and those facilities, then you're getting a better bang for your buck. And it's also good for the ESG, because mining is a temporary land use. All mines close down. We're seeing that the impact of that with the threat of the diamond mines closing over the next few years. So to be able to have a long-term mineral deposit that's providing employment, providing tax base, providing economic opportunities for local businesses, it's good for everybody.
Excellent. Don, this question is for you. Is Norzinc a zinc company or a silver company?
The answer to that is yes.
Oh, okay, well, there you go.
Yeah, so it's, historically the project was built, as I said, in the 1980s as a silver mine, a Cadillac silver mine. It has a super high, good high grade silver, one of the highest in the world, but there are some that are spectacularly higher than us. And we have very good zinc and lead grades. I mean, our combined, Jeff's project is a great zinc mine. We have great zinc and lead. Our combined zinc and lead is 16.7% on the reserve side. That's a diluted grade. And then we have a total of 23% zinc equivalent on the when you combine the silver into it. But we also have a reserve, that contains over 30 million ounces of silver at good grades, 4 ounces per ton diluted, and we have the potential for higher grades. Our resources are at the 5+ ounces. Well, put it in grams, we have 200 grams per ton of in our silver, and we have intercepts that have gone up to 500 grams per ton in the silver. So it has a good silver element to us, and it's still only about less than 30% of our revenue. The zinc is probably 40 to +%, and the lead is the balance. Our lead silver concentrate will contain most of the revenue, but the silver is very important from a market viewpoint. The valuations that are given for base metals versus the valuations for precious metals are significantly different. My previous company was a copper gold company, and you end up with a better valuation where you've got a byproduct that is a precious metal. As Robin has, so silver is critical. If we didn't have silver, this would not be a mine. If we didn't have zinc, we would not be a mine. But the biggest revenue comes from zinc, but from a market valuation viewpoint, probably the silver is more important. And that's why we're doing drilling last year and into this year, focusing as well as developing extra reserves, but also focusing on some silver-rich areas.
Perfect. Thank you. Jeff, we have a question here. What is a key objective that you're most excited about for 2021?
Well, we just put out our outlook for 2021, where our drill is turning on the back of last year, mid-year, having a PEA put out with very interesting economic metrics. Again, 500 million NPV with a 26.8% rate of return. To us, we consider that a starting point. What we're doing this year is not as much drilling. There's going to be a drill turning, and we're going to be testing the higher grade deposits on the site. There's two different types. Some of the intersections we've got there was about 30% combined lead zinc over 20, 30 meters. So we want to go back in. Those deposits are drilled off, but we have no current drilling in them. So we need to drill those, at least get 1 or 2 holes. So the holes are going to be multi-purpose holes. They're going to be to bring in some indicated high-grade, significant resources. We're also going to drill them to a diameter where we can do hydrogeological testing to enter that into our water model, which is one of the ways we want to reduce our costs. We'll be doing metallurgy on that material, and all of that together will will be rolled into a PEA at the end of the year. So the hydrogeological data that we're going to get, combined with the historical and everything we're combining, we'll bring that into the PEA to reevaluate what we consider will be needed to pump during the mine life. And we think that our conservative estimates during the PEA, we have a lot of upside. So with a more refined model, we'll be able to show that. So that'll reduce the costs. And I think very shortly here, we're going to be submitting our environmental assessment package, which is the beginning of permitting.
Perfect.
So we have been working on it, project description, we've consulted with the communities, and now we're just about ready to submit it to the government. That will start the permitting process. So that combined with everything rolled into the PEA, the project is on track. We hope to push it as hard as we can in this context. And the beauty of it is for Don and I, I'm, as I said earlier, we're very bullish on zinc. We think that the supply side is going to be under strain in the short term and even in the long term. There's not a lot of exploration and development that have gone on.
Mm-hmm.
Don's project has been around for decades, so has Pine Point. There's not a lot of work with new discoveries, new projects coming on. So that supply side is going to be constrained as all these government-backed infrastructure projects are going to come on, pulling on critical low levels of inventory. We think it's a perfect storm in the zinc space, and we're getting ready to meet that opportunity along with the stakeholders and the local community.
Excellent. Well, that went by so fast. We only have about 2 minutes left here, but I really want to give you guys the opportunity to leave investors that are watching with a final thought. So if we can just keep it brief. But Robin, let's start with you. Any final thoughts from today's session?
Sure. I'll just focus in on our key milestones for this year, which are finalizing the refinery site. We're looking at brownfield sites with equipment already in place, permitting already in place to essentially accelerate the development, reduce capital costs, project optimizations, project financing is a key. One of the major challenges for this year is to bring in the money to develop the asset, and we're also continuing to engage with governments to help enable critical minerals projects and help Fortune Minerals be a participant in the electric vehicle transformation that's taking place.
Thank you. Excellent. Don, your final thoughts from today?
So Mill Zinc, it's an extremely high-grade deposit. It has a lot of extra silver in it. It is very advanced in terms of the permitting process. We already have the permits in place for the initial design of the feasibility study at 1,600 tons a day, and we're going through a process of doing pre-screening to increase that to 2,400 tons a day. We, as part of our activities this year and into next year, we are working on a major initial financing, which will enable us to go underground to drill out the extra reserves that we need for part of our ultimate financing that we're planning for the middle of 2022. We're working on an updated feasibility study, which will include that extra reserves, but it also will include our extra throughput, and the design work on that is underway. We are planning, even before we actually get the full permits, to potentially start to build the first phase of our winter road Q1 of next year. So a year from now, if everything works out, we'll be starting construction with the full project financing in the middle of 2022 and being in production by the end of 2024. Lots got to line up with that. I mean, there's a possibility things won't quite line up and we'll be shifted by a year, which would still be 2025 production. But it's critical. We have a 15-year mine life here, long-term production, and certainly a company that will benefit from exactly what Jeff said, which is this improvement and need for infrastructure support around the world. And you're seeing that in the United States right now as I speak, where the metals companies are doing much better than the high-tech companies.
Excellent. Jeff, we have about 30 seconds left. Any final thoughts that you want to leave investors with?
Well, what we all just stated and what we're reading in the media is we're going into a bull commodity cycle. And even the word super cycle is coming back from the early 2000s, where China's demand outstrips supply. on its own. And we're seeing that in the iron ore space with high prices there, copper, et cetera. So I think with the potential of a super cycle with this government-backed stimulus, I think all of our projects will benefit, and that'll lead to benefits all around.
Excellent. Well, thank you all again for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure to sit down and speak with you. I know everyone's busy, but it was great to have everybody here throughout the morning. And thanks everyone who was watching for joining us for this Northwest Territories remote roundup session. And thanks, that was brought to you by the government of the Northwest Territories and of course, Invest Canada North. I'm Jessica Katrachak from BTV, and it was a pleasure. And thanks again. We will see you next time.
Thanks.